Good day, students. Today we're going to build the Four Corners layout app in Thunkable. First thing you're going to do is, when you're on your Thunkable projects page, you're going to create a new app. You're going to call it Four Corners. You do not need to add a category. So once we have our screen here, we're going to follow the tutorial follow what I do. So first thing is we need to drag a row component onto the screen. That's under user interface. And where is it? It's pretty far down here. It's all the way under layout. I'm going to bring out a row component. And notice it takes up the entire screen. So what I want to do is over here on the right side of the screen, I want to change the height because I want it to be about half the screen. I want it to fill half the screen. So you'll notice it's about the size of half the screen now. And then what I want to do is I want to add one more row below it, though it may not go there initially. Oh, there it is. Okay, so we now have row 2. We want to make sure it ends up being the same height, so we'll go to relative size 50. So now we have row 1 and row 2. Just so happens that row 2 is on top. That's okay. The next thing we want to do is start to add some columns. So you'll notice under layout, under the components under layout, we can get to the columns. So the first thing we'll do is drag a column into row 2. And it says column 1, and it's too wide. So we want to go relative size 50%. And you'll notice it's centered. So we want to get another column in there. Try to drag it out to the side. There we go, perfect. And it says column 2, that's fine. And then we'll make the width also 50%. And then we want to do the same thing for the same 2 columns into the lower row. So we'll go column 3, make sure that it's 50%, and column 4, and we'll make sure that that is also 50%. All right, now we've got our columns set up. The next thing we want to do is start to drag some buttons onto our screen. So what we're going to do is under the user interface, we have to scroll all the way back up. Under user interface, we want buttons, so we want to bring out a button for each column. So we'll go button right there, button right there, button right there, and a button right there. And what you'll notice is under our layout screen, up on the top here, you'll see how it's sort of nested within each other. So we have row 2, that's up there. Within row 2, we have column 2 and column 1. And within each column, we have our buttons. And it's the same also for our lower column, which is column 1. So we have all of our stuff that we can access through this part of the layout area. And what we want to do now is we want to rename some of our buttons, or rather we want to change the text that's on them. So I'm going to start with button 1, and I want the text to say button 1 so we know which one it is. We'll go to button 2 here. I'm going to go to the text. We're going to call it button 2. Go to button 3, and we'll call it button 3. And I'll click on button 4. Over here on the text, we'll call it button 4. So we're set up here. The next thing I want to do is I want to change the background color on here so they're not all blue. So I'll start back up at button 1. And here I can change the background color. I'm going to start this first one off as green. And then I want button 2. And I'm going to change that one, how about to yellow? And button 3, I'm going to get a new background color, how about this sort of purple? And then we'll go button 4, we'll change the background color to red. Okay, so now we have 4 different background colors. You can choose any colors you want, but make sure they're different than the way you started. Alrighty, so the last thing that's really important is we want to make sure, since this is the Four Corners app, we want to make sure that our buttons are actually up in the corners. So we have to go back to the columns. We can access them here. Here's column 2. And I'm going to scroll down on columns to the vertical alignment. The first thing I want to do is vertically, I want the button to be at the top. Horizontally, remember that's left to right. I want it over to the left. I'm going to do the same thing for all the other buttons. So button 2, I want it to, oh, actually, excuse me, not button 2. We have to go back to the columns. So that's column 2. We need to be in column 1. And in this one, so make sure you're in the columns, not the buttons. We want it to be at the top, and we want it to be, this one will be over the right. So we want it kind of broken up that way. And then at the bottom, we want this to be at the bottom, and we want it to be on the bottom left. And then for the last remaining column, we want it to also be at the bottom, except we want it to be at the bottom right. Okay, so now we have more or less completed our Four Corners app. Some challenges for you, as you'll notice on each button, you can do a lot of customizations here. So I'm on button 4. I can make the font bold. I can make it in italics. I can sort of have it pop out raised. I can do some interesting stuff with the borders and padding it so it's not touching other stuff. I can change the width and the height to make it a lot bigger. So if I wanted this to be, if I wanted it to be a lot taller, I could go relative size, say 50. You have a much bigger button. I can also add a background picture so that it's not just red. I can add something from my desktop or from the internet. So why don't you try and do something cool with your Four Corners app? So we didn't actually do any coding, but we did set up the app. It should be four buttons and 4 different corners. Thank you very much. Take care.